TV program was canceled. The news went down, which I enjoyed to watch every morning. And was very disappointed when it was canceled, but God doesn't close the door without opening a window. And so after that, he began his podcast, Roland Unfiltered. I'm going to tell a little story. When the board meeting was here in October, we were fortunate enough to meet Tom Jones, me and some other board members. And so I told Tom I was from Chicago, I was president-elect, and let him know, Roland Martin. And his comment to me was, he was your patient. How did you get a word in edgewise? As you were taking care of him. I said, I'm managed okay. I managed well enough that we are still friends, and even reverted him to the position when he got to D.C. So, it is my pleasure to introduce to all of you my friend, and I'm going to tell you, he's giving me a preview of what he's going to talk about. So we're going to probably say ouch during some of it, but we need it. Roland Martin.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Tom Joyner ain't talking about get a word in edgewise. That's what his doctor would say. I ain't afraid to go to the doctor, so I get a twinge. I'm like, look, if that goes 10 more minutes, I'm calling somebody. So how we doing?
All right.
Glad to see everyone here. It is the beginning of an unbelievably crazy, busy week for me. I got to head to Austin, back home to Texas for South by Southwest, doing a panel for Texas A&M on rebuilding the state after Hurricane Harvey. And then anybody here from Hampton, I'll see y'all on Wednesday for their family conference. Then off to New York, Philadelphia, then back to New York to do ABC This Week next Sunday. So a little light week. Glad to be back speaking to the National Medical Association. I was here a couple of years ago, and I think I spoke before that as well. And so a lot of familiar faces in here. And so thank you again for the invitation to speak. Also glad that our Surgeon General is here. I met him for the first time, so I'm glad to see him here as well. Go ahead, y'all clap. So Geneva said, she said, you might say ouch, and I always say this here. My wife is an ordained minister, and so therefore, if you want somebody to pray for you, lay hands on you, and comfort you, you should have called her, because God has given her this wonderful spirit of comfort, whereas he's given me a spirit of discomfort. And so when they sent me the topic to talk about, and then they sent me this 10-page outline in terms of your initiative, I began to go through it, and as I'm going through it, for me, I look for certain things. I look for, in terms of, everything for me is about messaging, in terms of, because that's what I do, communications. I went to Communications High School in Houston, Jack Hayes High School, Madison School of Communications, and so media is critically important. So let me put it in this perspective, because it's really going to set the tone for what I'm talking about. And if I had to, let me go ahead and do this also. Anytime I speak to this many black people, you got to tag your text. Some of y'all who don't go to church, y'all don't know what I just said. If you have skipped church a while, just nudge the person next to you and say, well, what does that actually mean? It's a black church thing. So let me title this or tag the text. You must own the narrative. You must own the narrative. And let me put this in perspective so people, and I think a lot of people are confused. Anywhere in the world, whenever there's a coup, meaning a government is overthrown, the first thing they get control of are the guns. You got to have the guns first. The second thing is media. Not the banks, not the ports, it's media. Because people understand the ability to be able to communicate to people. You're able to change their minds, you're able to influence them, you're able to alter their perspective. If you read Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, he talks about the need for a militant black press. speaking to the issues that matter to us. And I dare say one of the reasons why we have a fundamental problem in our community is that we still are operating at a deficit when it comes to media. This year is the 50th anniversary of the Kerner Commission report on the 1967 race riots. In that report, they said there are two Americas, one white, one black. And what they clearly articulate is that part of the problem for that was the fact that you had very little diversity and inclusion in America's newsrooms. So here we are. We've advanced 50 years. And when you look at the numbers in terms of African American men and women in radio and newspaper, in television and online, it has not gotten that much better. Our black newspapers have significantly decreased over the last 50 years. If you read Gerald Horne's book on Claude Burnett and the Negro Associated Press, between 1860 and 1900, you had 12,000 black newspapers that started and ended in that particular period. You have now less than 100. And so when you begin to look at that, and so then you look at the fact that you have, look at the number of nationally syndicated radio shows we have, and then you look at black networks, the fact that, look, News One Now, we were on for 4 years. We were the only daily morning show that specifically targeted African Americans. We ended our run on December 21st. There's been this huge response from people who were really upset by that, but it speaks to, again, the dearth of information. You look at the black websites right now in this country, so many of them are focused on entertainment and sports. I make the point that you can compare what's happening to African Americans when it comes to news the same way you talk about food deserts. Because if you have a neighborhood and all you have are fast food restaurants and liquor stores, then your body has been conditioned to want to eat and drink that. Well, the same thing I think when it comes to consumption of information. If all we have fed is entertainment and sports and gossip, then that's all our minds and bodies are going to crave. And so when you offer something different, folks say, oh, I don't want any of that, until you sort of get used to it. I used to hate apples. Now, I said, fine, I'll just eat that damn green apple, because I was not down with eating broccoli and peas. And so when I interviewed, it's so funny, when I interviewed the First Lady, she said, oh, Roland, you got to have this amount of vegetables and this amount. I was like, look, I can't. She tried to convince me to eat asparagus. I said, look, you the First Lady, that ain't going to happen. I said, ain't gonna work. She's like, well, you go ahead and do a green apple. I said, fine. I said, we'll meet in between right there. But then when you get used to it, you're like, okay, that's not bad. Well, the exact same thing happens, I think, when you talk about news consumption. The information matters. And so when we begin to talk about information, so many of our folks literally are starving as a result of proper information. Now, there are great gatherings all across the country. Now, I attend many of these places, and unfortunately, too many of them are closed. What I mean by that is we are having conversations only with the people in the room. And so the problem with that is that's great to have these discussions with the people in this room, but the people in this room are not the folks who need the information you actually have. You must go beyond that. And so how do we now do that in terms of this new world of technology? And so whenever I'm talking to folks, and we're talking about this here, here's the first thing that I get. We ain't got no money. I can't tell you how many organizations, how many people, that's the first thing they will say, we don't have any money. So do this for me. I know you're eating, but pull out your cell phone and hold it in the air for me. That's not rhetorical, that's literal. That's literal. I want everybody in this room to pull out your cell phone. What is in your hand right now is the ultimate information delivery system. Yeah. I want you to look at your phone again. Now, if you got a flip phone, all you got is a damn phone. You can barely text, your photos are horrible, you can't communicate other than calling somebody. Now again, I want you to think about this thing differently. What is in your hand is the ultimate information delivery system. That means what is in your hand right now, you can communicate with millions of people right now. You don't have to hope and pray that the Washington Post will come by your meeting. You don't have to beg for MSNBC or CNN or ABC or NBC or CBS or anybody to cover. The reality is we now have the capacity to bypass the traditional gatekeepers and communicate directly with our audience. And so what happens though is we completely overlook that, and then we just say, well, no, but it's just, I don't know, and we can't afford it, and it's just too much. When the problem is we are hoping and praying somebody else is going to do it when we actually can do it ourselves. Now, y'all really smart. I don't know how many degrees in this room. It's a whole lot, but you probably don't know jack about media. Y'all looking at me like I can repair an artery. Where is he? I'll walk you through this because you cannot confront the issue of health equity, and you cannot close the gap if you have technology equity or inequity as an organization, as individuals. You simply can't. Because if you're waiting for somebody else to walk in here and to cover your event, I'm just being straight up. So I'll give you an example. So every time I speak somewhere, the first thing I ask is, are you live streaming your event? That's the first thing I ask. Because I have about 2 million followers on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all my accounts, about 2 million. And so my followers always want to know, well, Roland, what are you doing, and where are you going, and what are you speaking? And so I utilize technology to be able to speak to my particular audience. Now, I said you have an information delivery system that is sitting in your hands. So let me just explain to you how simple this thing is. This is a device that is clamped to the podium, holding my iPhone. Right now, this is being streamed to my Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, as well as YouTube channels as we speak. When I'm done, on Facebook alone, we probably will have anywhere from 20 to 30,000 views, about 3 to 5,000 on Periscope, and then about a couple of thousand on YouTube. In the next 24 hours, when we restream it, we could very well double that. And so if you have about 200 folks in the room, do understand we're going to have more than 30,000 who are active. That's good. So you've been meeting here for a couple of days. Now I was talking and somebody said, well, we're recording this. Well, let me help you out. Recording a video and uploading it, you will get 10 times as many people viewing it and commenting on it who are watching it live than simply uploading it. It's a different world we're living in. Now, before I came here, again, how my brain sort of operates. When I came, I said, well, I'm gonna talk about this here. So I went to your Facebook page. You've got 3,700 likes on your Facebook page. That means you got 3,700 people who have liked your Facebook page. You've got about 3,400 Twitter followers. You've got 60 followers on Instagram. And then, matter of fact, I told you the social media person didn't even know y'all had Instagram, so which means somebody. And the last post was from 3 years ago. But I want you to follow me. I want you to follow me here. Your YouTube channel. Y'all have a YouTube channel. You have 19 subscribers. Now follow me. If we're talking about how do we deal with the health inequity and how do we begin to break these cycles, it's how do we communicate. Now, I said there's an information delivery system in your hand. You don't have to send a professional crew to every single one of your offices in order for you to communicate. Let's say you pull your phone back out, because y'all like, okay, he's scary with the phone thing. Imagine if you're sitting in your office and you decide to record a 90-second or a 2-minute video on the importance of communicating with your doctor. And you just give it to your assistant or nurse, whoever you got, and say, hold the phone right there. You have my whole head in the frame. And you just talk to your phone 2 minutes. You can then simply send that video to the NMA and say, can you please upload this on our YouTube channel? And then upload it on our Instagram account, Twitter account, Facebook. Now all of a sudden, your single video that took 2 minutes can literally now go to thousands of people. Now you are thinking differently about how to spread information. You've got a president who tweets all day. You've got Speaker Ryan, you got Mitch McConnell, you got Nancy Pelosi, you got members of Congress who are utilizing social media to communicate messages every single day. So how is it that we are afraid to utilize what is literally in our hands right now? Now, how many of you in this room have personal Facebook pages? Raise your hand. All right.
Or you.
Huh?
Have or you.
Well, however you want to do. How many of you have Twitter pages? Number getting real small. How many of you have Instagram accounts? Even fewer. Lord, don't let me ask about Snapchat. How many got Snapchat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, Snapchat is the one vehicle that communicates to a younger audience more than any other platform. There are fewer people in this room with Snapchat accounts, but that's where young folks are communicating. Okay, let me reiterate that. Out of all the social media platforms I just said, fewer people are on the one platform where there are the most younger people. So we have conversations about how do we communicate to younger African Americans when it comes to health, but we're not even where they are. And so therefore, how are we going to reach them if we don't go where they are? And so we must be approaching this thing not even from an organizational standpoint alone, but as an individual and an organizational standpoint. You as individuals don't have to wait for it. I dare say that if you probably surveyed every person in here, you probably have collectively more people following you who actually follow NMA. Which means that if you are communicating something, and then you're tagging your fellow members, and then they begin to retweet, all of a sudden a single tweet can now be seen by multiple thousands of people simply by virtue of you taking the small step to just post it. Now let me tell you how this works. So the other day, yesterday, or day before yesterday, I'm traveling, and so Brian Smetley posts an article. I take it you know Brian. He posted an article that was done on NPR about the impact of opioids among African Americans and how devastating it is. I see the article. A brother Monday had texted me about it, and how my brain works. I said, Brian, you need to hit NMA, and y'all need to do a town hall, and then what we can do is live stream the town hall discussing this very issue. That was 10 seconds. Now, if I am depending on NPR to tell my story, what happens when they say no? What happens when the New York Times says, we don't find it to be interesting? I'm trying to get us to go beyond mainstream media and to realize that we cannot change anything unless we literally are controlling our narrative. Where we are today is we literally are begging white-controlled media to tell our story, and why can't we? So, Surgeon General says he did Tom Joyner last week. Okay, you have Tom Joyner. These are nationally syndicated radio shows. More than 50% of African Americans get their daily information from urban radio. Now, answer this question. When is the last time the NMA was on Tom Joyner, Steve Harvey, Ricky Smiley, D.L. Hughley, Erica Campbell, Sharpton Show, Joe Madison Show, Karen Hunter, You have Thompson, Mark Thompson, so that's 9. And then you throw in the other shows that are Sirius XM View. Think about that. You have nationally syndicated radio shows hosted by African Americans, and how are we communicating with them on a regular basis? I can tell you, as somebody who hosted the only daily morning show targeting black people, I rarely got information, emails, or requests from black organizations to come onto the show. Folks would say, man, we never can get on. I'm going, because you never call or email. I'm saying that because the apparatus is sitting in our faces right now. Of course, you have your black newspapers. You have NNPA. You have African Americans who are columnists at daily newspapers across the country. So in order to break down these walls, there has to be a communication mechanism that is constantly driving the message to those existing entities. But even if they then are saying no, then it's also then begin to say, well, how do we also communicate? And so when I was talking to Neva, she said that the Chicago Urban League put out this report on opioids and how we're getting treated. I said, damn, would have been nice for somebody to know. I want you to think how many times we are releasing reports with great information that are simply trees falling in the wilderness. And then folks go, well, man, somebody should have known. Who did you tell? Who did you communicate it to? Who did you reach out to? Who are we talking to? This has to be the proactive measures that we take if we're going to somehow deal with this narrative. Now, how many of you have been watching cable news? And when it comes to the issue of opioid crisis in America, all you see are white folks. Raise your hand. And you're sitting at home going, I know some black people are impacted. Now, as an organization, you should be challenging every single cable network to say, how are you not including black voices in any of these stories? How are you holding town halls on gun violence in Florida after Parkland, but none of you have decided to go to Chicago? There has to be a militancy when it comes to us advocating on the issue of health to media, and you can't think it's going to be somebody else. And I know somebody's saying, but yeah, well, that's not really our lane. Yes, it is. Who can better speak to health and environment than you when it comes to people of color? Which means that mantle has to be taken up. And so I went through the list, and I saw the organizations in terms of reaching out to and sort of helping with this. But to me, that is still incomplete. It has to be a militant position, an aggressive position, a revolutionary type attitude, because we are in a situation now, by 2043, America will be a majority-minority country. And when you begin to look at what is happening in media, you are not seeing those numbers correspond. You literally are still seeing largely whites deciding what the news stories are. If you want to understand this, you go to any cable network in America, and I guarantee you, if you run into 2 black people, you would be shocked. And I'm talking about somebody who has direct editorial decision making. Even when you talk about black folks who hosting shows, don't be confused. They're not necessarily running their shows. Brian Williams was the anchor and managing editor of NBC Nightly News. When he got replaced by Lester Holt was the anchor, not the managing editor. Okay, let me explain that. I was the host and managing editor of News One Now, which means if I said no, you didn't come on the show. There was no vote. There was only one vote. When it came to the topics we discussed, I determined the topics. I determined how long we're going to talk about it. When we went live from somewhere, if I said we're going live, we went live. If I said we're not going live, we didn't go live. I had full authority editorially of the show. I'm telling you right now, the black folks you're watching right now on these networks do not have full editorial authority, so they cannot make the sole decision that, yes, I'm going to put this black doctor or put this black environmental expert or put this person on the show. They have to go ask somebody. That's the reality in terms of where we are. And so what we have to understand is that media is driving everything. I was coming over here looking at a video where folks in Japan now have a different view of black people because of Black Panther. Now, do understand, America's greatest export is our entertainment. People around the world have a perception of black people, not because they met black people, because of what they watched and heard. When you've got, I was talking to Ice-T, and he said, man, I'm in Japan. These cats are doing my songs and don't speak English. They rapping my songs in English, but don't speak English. And he's saying how our hip hop culture has impacted across the world. And so that's how powerful media is, because it can create perceptions, it can change perceptions, it can form perceptions, and it can lock them in. And so moving forward, this has to be a huge priority in terms of how do we then begin to change this conversation and begin to force it in a different way. And I'm sure you turn the television on, and when you've seen these topics come up, and you're sitting here going, I know y'all could have found somebody black. But how many of you call and write and demand they change? It's a waste of our time sitting at home complaining about something and then not saying attitude when it comes to how do we deal with this narrative. Because if we do not own the narrative, we literally are going to be asking somebody else, please, baby, please, can you please do this? And then if they don't, well, I guess we can't do anything. And so while we are fighting the actual existing media ecosystem, we also must begin to utilize what is already there. That you are not live streaming. Not one. There should be no event that you're doing where you're not constantly driving a social media message, where people who are not here, individuals who could not travel here, are following what is going on, or communicating what's going on. These things are happening all across the country, even exist. And so that has to be the mentality moving forward. It has to be a situation where you're sitting here going, how can I use 60 seconds of my time to communicate something and then begin to spread it out? Then all of a sudden something goes viral. Now I know some of y'all looking at me, y'all saying, okay, but this really isn't sexy stuff. All right. Who knows Dr. Hadaya Green? Sister from Atlanta. One person. All right. I want y'all to check this out. When her interview was on News One Now. Now, I have done numerous interviews. I have done numerous commentaries. A lot of people come up to me talking about my Wendy Williams commentary. They talked about my Bill O'Reilly, Colin Kaepernick commentary. They've talked about any number of commentaries. But out of all the things that I did on Facebook was the one I did with Hadaya talking about cancer. No, let me help y'all to understand this here. The Wendy Williams commentary I did, where I lit her on fire when she talked about HBCUs and NAACP. It's around 8.7 million views on Facebook. The Hadaya interview is at 14.1 million. 8.6 million, sir. You can go watch the interview, I'm kind of like, She's talking about it, she's smiling, she's breaking it down in a way people understand, and literally more than 14 million views of that particular interview. But here's the piece. That And it would have never happened if she didn't figure out, how do I communicate a medical message in a way and break it down in a way where people can understand what exactly I'm talking about. That's what I am saying in other areas, and begin to communicate that. Imagine if you now are flooding the zone, and then that is happening, whether it's radio, whether it's newspapers, whether it's podcasts, whether it's online digital shows. Imagine if that becomes a focus. Now you talk about messaging. Now all of a sudden you are tripling and quadrupling. All of a sudden people are like, I heard about this and this, and I had no idea this and this and this. But that cannot happen as long as you're quiet. It requires there to be a different attitude when it comes to driving this. And I dare say we can totally ramp this thing up if we have messengers who are ready, willing, and able to begin to communicate in an effective way. And folks who will say, I will answer the call. And so I would say this here. If I'm the NMA, what I'm doing is, and understand how media happens. All these health stories, all these different things happen. There should not be any issue health-wise where all of a sudden your folks are not flooding the zone to all these media folks, whether they're producers, whether they're editors, whether they're assignment editors. We've got our folks available to talk about these various issues. Here's their name, here's their email, here's their phone number. Reach out to them. Because trust me, you got a whole bunch of lazy bookers out there, and there's nothing better when you get an email like, ooh, good, I ain't got to find nobody. They right there. I can just go ahead and call them right now. I'm trying to tell you that's how the game works. We have to actually play that game. And I can tell you, as somebody who still does it, who does my commentary, Tom Jordan twice a week, who does my podcast, and who's working on launching a daily digital show, there's nothing better when people are like, hey man, I got this idea, and then let me know when I'm available. That's how this works. And so we can change this, but it has to require everybody making a decision, what's going to be my part? So let's say you say, I don't want to do radio and TV. Fine. How are you utilizing social media? Because, I'm sorry, people are not even communicating via email anymore. It is not. Matter of fact, I don't even text my family anymore. We all in a group me chat. Raise your hand if you know about group me. Praise the Lord. Okay, all right, I got a little scared there. Woo, I got a little scared there. After asking about Snapchat, y'all kind of like, what the hell is snapping and chatting? And so we are communicating in a much different way now, which means that we are going to have to change. And let me also deal with this here, because there's some people looking at me right now. He's 71 in November. My dad, he'll call me up about something I tweeted. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, I forgot I even tweeted that. I mean, he on Instagram, Twitter, he following all my stuff. I mean, he'll call me, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, you do, it was like 3 hours ago, you said this. I'm like, hell, I tweeted 30 things since then, Daddy. He's 70. And I know somebody's sitting here saying, okay, fine, that's 70, but you got folks at 50. That's fine. I'll be 50 in November. And I destroy the millennials who work for me. Because they're like, how you know all this sort of stuff? Because I read. I keep up. I roll. Portable newsroom. Something go down, I can be live literally in 60 seconds. Age does not matter in this conversation. We have to be thinking totally different about the future. And so this is what will be in place, and this is what will be surveyed. So first, I would say, y'all write this down, do a survey, everybody in this room and every single person's social media account. That is, I would want to know from everybody in this room, what's their Facebook account, the Twitter account, survey. Now, when I'm sending messages out, I'm tagging all of those different people to communicate that message. Second thing, you don't leave here unless you tell everybody in here you got to sign up for the NMA YouTube channel. Y'all, 19 is 3 tables. You got 19 right now. You can have 100 in an hour if you ever know what you ought to do. Our folks run around with the phone. Whoever your social media people, you should get as many 60-second drops from as many people in here about different topics and uploading those things to YouTube when you leave here. That's how basic and fundamental this is. We are not going to change our communities unless we are communicating with our communities. We're not going to change this system if we're only talking to folks on Capitol Hill, only talking to doctors ourselves. It is going to require us utilizing the communication methods that people are using today. And if you have folks who have taken videos that have gone viral in 2 and 3 million, tell me why we can't literally do the exact same thing with the folks sitting in this room. So I'm gonna do this here. I'm gonna end what I'm talking about, and I'm gonna take questions. I tell you it's gonna be a little different, because I know some of y'all look at me right now like, okay, I got about 10% of what you just said, and I'm totally clueless. So let's take a few questions. I don't care what it is, raise your hand. There are no dumb questions.
Back to your own situation. News One that morning show was a mainstay for a whole lot of people in the African American community. And after it was announced that it was being discontinued, Tom Joyner, whose program is under the same auspices, had a very negative reaction against the owners of the station itself. Publicly, he even said on the air that I may get in trouble for saying this, but everybody needs to boycott the station. Can you give us a follow-up on what happened with that?
Well, one, the show's not coming back. I know there was a press release sent out that said they were retooling the show. That's not happening. I haven't had that conversation, so if I haven't had it, I can guarantee you it's not happening. And so the show's not coming back. A daily digital show. Again, utilizing technology. Because if I'm able to, right there on the corner, on the right corner, right there, the charger, the Mophie right there, right corner, right corner, right corner. The next one, right. Keep going, right there. Thank you. All right. And so that's what I'm working on. And again, if we're stuck in the old paradigm, the reality is our media is changing. You have OTT, over-the-top networks. You have all of that going on, and so that's what I'm actually working on right now to do that. And the reality is, I'll be in a position where I know I will. The night of State of the Union, we did it at Shiloh Baptist Church here in D.C. We had more than 200,000 views, and we reached 1.5 million people that night. It will take me 2 weeks to reach 1.5 million people on TV One. Technology changes the game, but it has to be funded. So again, I'm literally talking to folks right now. I have a couple of corporate underwriters. We're doing that, but that would be a 5-day a week, and it would be a daily show that you would be able to see on your television, on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer. And so that's what I'm working on as we speak.
I appreciate your talk very much. I'd like to hear your answer. I think I know what it's going to be, but just for other people, there are probably a hundredth of the membership is actually here right now. And when I mentioned the idea of live streaming one of our section meetings, the reply was, well, if people can see it on TV, then they won't come.
Well, again, if you have your registration and folks are already here, if I'm not here, I'm not coming. But again, though, you're not live streaming your events for your members. You're speaking to the public. If you have, when you got a branding problem, you got a branding problem, which means that no one knows who you are. That's what it means. And so this is not how do we communicate to members. You're actually trying to communicate, how do we communicate to Black America that we exist? Nobody knows. I'm saying, how do you get folks? All right, so let's say you record a session. They won't know it's live. So that's how you take a recorded, I've done it as well. I'll take a recorded video, live stream it, it's live. The viewership will be totally different than when just simply posting the video. But it's thinking totally different. You have to start communicating. Surgeon General, if he's just talking to medical people, or talking to the public, that's who needs the information. That's who has to be aware. Here, sister over here. Brother right here.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate your talk. Dr. Chief at Washington, D.C. One, I think one point is
Right.
Yeah. So, but the point you're making is also very, very valid because it depends on the audience we're targeting. If you look at the NMA annual convention, there are areas that I really, really need to go to the public. Because if we are talking about people should go for their colonoscopy, screening things and all that.
Right.
You're not talking to the doctors. We expect that we are the ones giving that message. But like he says, that message needs to get to our folks back home. So we can choose the areas that we live stream so that if you choose not to come to the conference, you're not going to get the CME.
So let's say you live stream one session.
Yeah, one session. Yeah.
Or two, but not all of it. Yeah.
Our keynote speeches, our plenary sessions.
Right.
You can only live stream those, you know. And some of the majority organizations, what they also do is that even after the conferences are over, they still allow you to see live, but pay a little token, you know.
Right.
So, I mean, for doctors, so that you still get your CME, but they are still making money. So there are all kinds of things we can do. So we take his advice and take some of these other feedback and mine.
See, when I went through that 10-page report in terms of what you're trying to accomplish, with all the different entities you're reaching out and all these different things, I'm telling you, for me, what jumped out was that literally was a small line for media, and that's how you're going to communicate. So that is a messaging thing. Sister right over here.
Thank you. I'm the board trustee. We're talking about investing in the organization so that we can get having a brand, a bigger brand. How much do you think we would return on investment versus actually investing into doing some social media? What you can gain by increasing our brand?
Well, but first, okay, so the first thing here. So if I'm looking at it, I gave you the numbers. 3,400 on Twitter, 3,700 on Facebook, 60 on Instagram, 19 on YouTube. Which means that out of all your social media platforms, you do not have 10,000 people following you. So when there are discussions about black people, so let me put it this way. When there are discussions about black health, are you at the table? Now, explain that to me. When I met with the U.S. Black Chamber, Inc., and I know some of y'all like, man, why y'all really invited him for this? No. You can call Ron Busby, and I said, Ron, how in the hell are there conversations in America about black economic development and y'all not at the table? I said, you should demand there never be a meeting of the Urban League, of the NAACP, or any other organization where they're discussing black folks and money and you not at the table. It's the same thing for the NMA. You cannot have a conversation about black people and health and you not be at the table. Which means you have to make it clear in a militant way, y'all are not going to talk about black health and we're not at the table. Which means that you have to be challenging other organizations. Say, we are the experts. This is what we do. Look, if I'm going to have a conversation about how do you mobilize and organize black women, I'm not going to have a panel of all dudes. And so what has to happen is how do you begin to broaden your story? And the investment I'm talking about is a minimal investment, but I'm telling you, and the way social media works, you don't get people following you unless you have information they want to see and receive. But if I'm never receiving it, I'm not going to follow you. If I'm not following you, I don't know you exist. If I don't know you exist, who are you? That's what I mean. Sister right here.
Yes, good afternoon. So I just wanted to say excellent talk, and I wanted to go back to your point about controlling the narrative. So we had a meeting at the National Institute of Mental Health and Health Disparities, and some of the leadership didn't know that opioids were also affecting the black community. And the article that you mentioned, the practitioner who was featured in that article is right here, Dr. Edward. And so I would like to take you up on that town hall because we have the knowledge right here in the room to really get that message out.
Right, and that's why I told Brian to hit the NMA about saying, put the town hall together. I own my own cameras, or I ain't got to go borrow them. And that's sort of what I mean. See, yeah. So you gonna play Phil Donahue? Question here, woman in the red, then brother back there. So you got roller skates on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, for your comments. I'm the director of IT for the Cobb Institute, which is the research arm of the National Medical Association. In looking over our social media presence, recent surveys suggested that Snapchat, Instagram, and LinkedIn should be the top 3 in terms of trying to have a media presence, so that people don't have the media overload in trying to come on board, as you suggested, as you demanded. Would you give the top 3 that you think people should start?
First of all, LinkedIn is not my top 3 because LinkedIn is if I'm looking to recruit or hire people and I'm communicating. So it's not. But follow me here. Understand. So if I post, I can post a maximum of 1 minute on YouTube video. If I got a photo on Instagram, my Instagram page is linked to my Twitter account, which is linked to my Facebook account. So when I click OK, it's actually going to all 3. When I post on my Facebook page, it's linked to my Twitter account, okay, which then again, so I'm posting one time, it goes to both. And so I can only do 1 minute of video on Instagram. I can load video directly on Facebook. I got limits in terms of YouTube as well. And so it's understanding the different mediums. You can do 30 seconds on Twitter. There's a group of us who allow to post 10 minutes of video on Twitter as well. And so it's a matter of understanding the rules and engagement for different ones. And so Instagram is photo and video driven. Twitter is text driven, but also has video and photos as well. It's how you utilize all of them all at the same time. And how everything is all, for me, this is how basic and simple it is. If you say on a daily basis, from the NMA Twitter account, Facebook account, we're going to post 3 to 4 stories that we saw in different places are related to black health or health issues, and we're going to post them, disseminate them. You are, in essence, becoming a news delivery system for folks who have no idea the stories even exist. That's just simple. That's just, I saw a story, grab the link, dropped into the account, hit send, it goes out. Now all of a sudden, I don't even know the story's even there. That's how I utilize my account. People say, man, I never heard of those stories. Because I'm operating as that person's, in essence, newspaper. I'm operating as the assignment editor. I'm informing them about stuff they have no idea even exists because we think everybody sees everything. We don't. I don't see everything. And I read a hell of a lot of news every single day. And so I follow more than 2,000 people on Twitter because they're posting things that I don't necessarily see. It's a way for me to also see the information. And so it's understanding how all of this works. But the most important thing what this does is you are informing the public and you're trying to break down the walls, which is the hardest thing. The hardest thing for you is to get people to even pay attention to any of this stuff. You have to have a state of mind where you are the period. Nobody else. That has to be the absolute mission. And there's no greater way to achieve that than by driving a communication message, or people go, okay, NMA, or I saw that report, or I saw that story, I need to follow them. That's what it actually requires. And imagine if you say, fine, twice a week, you're gonna post a 60-second video, let's say, call it keeping you healthy. And you just say, members, I need y'all seeing 2 videos a week, we're gonna post them on our Twitter account, Instagram account, I just need 60 seconds. That 60-second video could very well go viral, and you look up and it's 10, 20, 30, 50, 100,000, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, and you go, what the hell happened? Easily. It was interesting, it was compelling, it was 60 seconds. Question.
It's telling me that knowledge is power, and our people are perishing for lack of knowledge. My question is, can you speak a little bit about how we can use these platforms to generate revenue? Because a lot of the solutions that we talk about today require money.
Yep.
We always show money.
Well, here's the deal. First of all, YouTube has an ad sharing deal. So that's why you want to drive YouTube to get at least 10,000 members. Now, here's the other piece. If you get more than 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, you are able to utilize the YouTube studios in New York and LA for free. Now, the way it also works with YouTube in terms of their videos, okay? You get more than 10,000, the more subscribers you get on YouTube, if you're part of their ad sharing network, then you are able to, they're able to insert ads into your videos when people are watching it. And so videos that are 5 minutes, 8 minutes, or 10 minutes or longer, they're inserting those ads. Now, you begin to talk about money. We started doing that with my channel, and I'll probably, so there's one point, let's say August or so, we had about 70,000. I wasn't paying much attention to our YouTube channel because we couldn't load videos of my show on about 70,000 subscribers on YouTube. Well, Facebook does not have an ad sharing deal. Okay, so I said, fine, stop posting our videos on Facebook, post them on YouTube, and put the YouTube link on Facebook. If y'all want to watch it, damn it, you got to go to YouTube. What we generated is passive income.
Yeah.
We've been averaging about 5,000 a month. Now, you say, oh, that's 60 grand, which is actually more than zero. But the point is, we built the subscription base on YouTube, and we're dropping information on YouTube. It's also part of the ad sharing deal. So whatever extra dollar. So let's say you hire somebody, and then their job is to drive your social media. If you're generating $3 grand a month on YouTube, a person's job could essentially be paying for itself. But again, it's realizing the systems that are there for you to utilize it. So I would think about it in those terms, because here's the other piece. You said revenue. As you grow your brand and as you grow your social media platform, you're going to have other people who are going to want to be your corporate underwriters, because they now realize your social media following is not less than 10,000. It's now 25, 50, 100, 200, $250,000. And so now when you come to the table, it's like for me, I sat in a meeting, said, I know you got 1 million followers on Facebook. He said, what's your reach? I know what he was trying to get at. And so when he said that, I said, well, the number of engagements in a 28-day period, I said, is 2.3 million in terms of people who comment. I said the reach is 4 million. We signed the deal the next day. Because they figured out, wait a minute, he's reaching 4 million people in 28 days, just on Facebook. Yeah, we signed that deal the next day. They call in 24 hours. That's how building the platform generates revenue as well. So it goes beyond just your membership. You have people on the outside who are getting your information and are using it as well. Question in the back?
Next to last question.
All right.
This one and then Chair.
Just a real question. This is a great comment. I'd like to make a comment just to the end. One of the things that I think is really being here is an opportunity for you to do online CME. I get majority agencies that contract me to do this. They ask me to talk about disparities. This is an organization with broad-based expertise in that. And what happens when I do that with content development online CV, we plug patient sites. So this would be another way to amplify that. And it would be, quite frankly, a revenue stream. And I'll tell you, somebody who does a lot of it, much better than doing that.
There you go. Last question down front.
So you know the Black Panther era in the country, how is that going to impact this country?
I will answer that question in 2 years. No, because no, here's why. First of all, black people always knew we could do that kind of movie. Up until this, no African American director had ever gotten a budget of $100 million. They exist. Ava did A Wrinkle in Time, it was a $100 million budget. Coogler got $200 million for Black Panther. We always knew that. So white folks are waking up. We're like, about time. But see, the issue is not, while everybody's all, hyped about it, and I understand it, the issue for me is, like, there was somebody posted, they said, Ryan Coogler, is a black Steven Spielberg. I'm like, no. I said, hell no. Don't call Ryan Coogler a black Steven Spielberg until Ryan Coogler can walk into any movie studio and say, I want to do this, 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 and then they greenlight it. See, I will answer that question if Hollywood then changes its decision to market our films overseas, because up until then it's like, oh no, the world, it's hard to market black films overseas. The world is 2/3 people of color. How in the hell is it that hard? I mean, how is it you can go to Japan and they're listening to Blues from Mississippi, but you telling me you can't market these movies? Because that's the system that's set up. And so we've always had, look, Girls Trip was the #1 comedy. Not black comedy, #1 comedy. Okay, Hollywood, y'all gonna make other films with black people that's gonna make us laugh? Or will you say, that's an anomaly? So I remember when Wait to Exhale came out. Hollywood was like, oh my God, black women go to movies. Really? But did that change their system? No, because for Hollywood, they go, oh, that's a one-off. Let's see. Look, and I'll give you an example. Just Right, when Just Right came out, Common, Queen Latifah, they projected it should make this. It only made $42 million. Literally, there were 5 or so romantic comedies in the pipeline starring African Americans, all grinded to a halt because of that one movie. Brian White, the actor, we had him on Washington Watch. He had a script. Matter of fact, this is perfect. It was a true story of these doctors who did all these shenanigans in the hospital. Okay? All 7 Hollywood studios loved the script. I mean, they were all clamoring for it until they found out that all of the doctors were black. All 7 said no. Because in their mind, I don't know, black doctors? Ain't no white doctors? George Lucas could not get Red Tails done by a major studio because they said there were no white heroes. He said, well, the heroes are the black people, the Tuskegee Airmen. They said, yeah, but all the white people are evil. He went, well? They all said no. So I'll wait a year or two to see if Hollywood really changed, so-called liberal Hollywood changes, or they treat Black Panther like it's an anomaly, it's a one-off, well, we're not quite sure that thing may, or they may say, well, that was really because of Marvel, and all this sort of stuff along those. That's the reality of what it means to be black in this country. That's what we see, and so, I'll wait to see, but their history, the track record, ain't good when it comes to this, and so we'll see sort of how they operate with it. Last point again, I appreciate coming. I knew this was going to be a non-traditional speech to you, but the opportunity that sits before us is huge. When I say that we don't have to depend upon the old gatekeepers who control the narrative, who control the storyline, who control the messaging, we can literally change it. We don't have to wait. When people come up to me now, they literally are saying, man, it'd be nice, man, if I could see you on CNN. Why? I did that already. I'm not interested in doing the same thing I did in 2008. Somebody said, well, but what did you do a weekly show? I did that from 2009 to 2013. No, information is moving way too fast now. So if I'm not studying the existing systems and saying, wait a minute, if you're telling me that I can use the same cameras to live stream a show with the same content I did beforehand, but I can reach 3 to 4 and 5 times as many people, now the onus is on me to go build the relationships when it comes to the dollars. So whether it's corporate partners and which are the same advertisers you would get on the network, then that's what I would do. But that's where we are. We have to be thinking, just like if you're thinking as a doctor, if you're thinking about new ways to treat people, new techniques, media is the same way. But at the end of the day, if the message stays in this room, nobody will benefit other than the people in this room. We have an opportunity to completely change the game, and they're going to look up and say, what in the hell did they do? Easy. We said no more walls. We got outside of our comfort zone and said we're going to take this message directly to the people.
Certainly, I want to thank Roland. This is fantastic. I think the idea of offering us the solution, and we have been talking about the National Action Plan of Health, and it's a collaborative effort. It includes media as well, and I'm so thankful that you have given us the way out in terms of the solution to getting out this message and really affecting change to bring about action in terms of health care. And so I have a busy 5 months ahead of me before my term is up, but it is going to include amping up our media channel. We were live streaming today. We live streamed a little bit on yesterday. And again, when we get to the convention, we will be reaching millions internationally. That's our next goal, and our action plan will be moving forward. So today is not over yet. We still have more to go. And so before I finish, I have to give you a wrap up, but we're not there yet. Our Surgeon General has graced us with his visit, semi-surprise, but we want to allow him the opportunity to say a few words, and he will take some questions. Of course, the Surgeon General hails from the state of Indiana. I won't say Grand. Some of the people from Indiana, well, from the wonderful state of Indiana. He has been the Commissioner of Health for the state. He has run a fantastic HIV/AIDS and Hep C program, and again, fantastic budget. And I know there was one other piece that I was supposed to say, but I'm going to allow you to tell that story. And again, he was, the first Surgeon General to meet us and come out with his nice new uniform on at the Congressional Black Caucus and brought us wonderful words. And so that was his first public event, and we certainly appreciate that, and we appreciate you coming back. Of course, he's always been a member of the National Medical Association, and I'm sure if I don't say he was in the anesthesiologist section, all of those, he has his following. So we will hear a few words from the Surgeon General. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. That was just a fabulous, fabulous presentation from Roland. Thank you so much for that. Couldn't agree more. He talked about the how, the delivery. I'm going to talk a little bit about framing, but I did want to tack on one additional point, and that's making sure you tag people. And when you tag people, I get a lot of social media hits out there now, and I can tell you there's people who tag me in everything that they put out there. And they're people who I might not have otherwise paid, well, I probably wouldn't have known or paid attention to. And they may tag me 20 times, but it's that steady drip, 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 drip. You're sitting in the airport getting ready to get on your plane, and you open up your Twitter and something comes across. So that's another way to make sure you're getting in touch with people, making sure you're tagging those folks who you're trying to influence. But it is a pleasure and an honor to be here. I am so grateful for the National Medical Association and the anesthesiology section in particular. I've grown up within the NMA and the AMA, and they've given me opportunities to continue to make connections, to network, to present. Some of my first presentations were at the anesthesia section of the NMA. And to get that credibility, to get those presentations on my CV that then allowed me to build to where I am today. So it's critically important what you do. I love that the theme for your meeting is the urgency of now, because we have a tremendous opportunity now. There's tremendous fear out there. I'd be lying if I didn't admit that. There's a lot of fear out there on the part of many of you all and many of the people you represent. But every challenge brings opportunity, and it's up to us to see the opportunity that exists. When you look at health equity, when you look at equity, giving people what they need, regardless of how you feel about the president, he ran by speaking to people who felt they weren't being treated equitably. So there's an opportunity to have a discussion about making sure everyone is getting what they need. When you look at the opioid epidemic, there's a great opportunity to help people understand the importance of the social determinants of health. But it's all about making sure we take advantage of that opportunity, making sure we frame our message in a way that resonates with decision makers. The theme for my time as Surgeon General is better health through better partnerships. And I'll tell you a very quick story that helps encapsulate why I believe in that with all my heart. When I was in Indiana as the health commissioner, I was at the helm during the largest HIV outbreak related to injection drug use in the history of the United States. So a small rural town had never had, well, they'd had 3 total HIV cases over the past decade. Now 230 plus cases of HIV, all related to injection drug use. I had a public health crisis, I had a medical crisis that I had to solve. And as a doctor, as a public health advocate, I ask you, who do you think I called to solve that crisis? And since we don't have time to go back and forth, I'll tell you, people will throw out there when I ask that question, they'll say, call the CDC. You called Dr. Kane at Indiana University. Did you call NIH? And yes, I called all those people, but they're not who I called first. First person I called was the local sheriff. Second person I called was the local faith-based leader. Third person I called was the head of the local business community. And why is that? Because we knew the science. We knew we needed to implement a syringe service program to stop the transmission of HIV. But that was illegal in Indiana at the time. And we knew that in order to implement the science in a way that was acceptable in that community, we needed the buy-in from the business leaders, the faith-based community, and the law enforcement community. We needed to become better partners. To Roland's point, we needed to get outside of our echo chambers and start speaking to other individuals. And you ask yourself why those are important, those people are important. Number one issue that people vote on, Democrat, Republican, black or white, jobs in the economy. Number two issue they vote on, Democrat or Republican, black or white, safety and security. We needed to make sure we were speaking to them in a language that resonated. And by partnering with those folks and meeting them where they are, we were able to have a conversation that then allowed us to implement that syringe service program. The sheriff, I didn't go down there and say, you need to listen to my science. I said, what are your concerns? He said, my jail's overcrowded. He said, I'm worried about my law enforcement officers getting stuck with needles. They can't fight crime because they're out there responding to calls for needles in people's yards. And I said, well, you know, sir, if we do a syringe service program and we do it the right way, studies show we can actually lower needle stick injuries to law enforcement officers by 60%. We can help create an exchange and encourage people to bring in their used syringes so that they're not out on the streets and potentially contaminating other people. And we'll connect people to addiction and recovery support services so that you don't have that revolving door at your jail, but instead people are getting connected to care. That's what better health through better partnerships is all about. Again, you all weren't expecting me to be here today, so I'm going to finish off with some brief points about framing, and I call it my 3 W's. Welcoming everyone under the tent, watching your language, and wearing the right hat. So welcoming everyone under your tent when you're talking about equity, particularly when you're going up on the Hill. And Dr. Kane was with me when we did this. One of the things I'm most proud of in Indiana, we have one of the highest black to white infant mortality disparities in the country. I'm not proud of that. I'm proud that we were able to get $13 million to combat that disparity during my time as Health Commissioner of Indiana. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't go into the State House yelling about the black-white infant mortality disparity to get that money. Because if I'd done that, probably wouldn't have gotten it. Probably wouldn't have gotten it. And it's not that they're bad people, but there are plenty of counties in Indiana that are 99+% white. And I can go there and say we've got these horrible infant mortality statistics, black and white, and they can even believe me. But at the end of the day, when they're voting on where they spend their money, I'm gonna say, I don't know any black babies that are dying, but I know there's potholes that are in the streets that need to be filled. I know there's other needs in my community. We have to welcome everyone under our tent and show them how inequities affect them. So I don't like to bring up problems without bringing up solutions. Here's what we did. We went to those rural communities and we didn't talk about the black-white disparity. We went to those communities and we said, you know, some of the worst disparities out there are urban versus rural, and your rural communities are suffering. Your babies are dying because we aren't using the evidence-based programs that we know will lower infant mortality rates. And we were able to show them how they fit under the health equity tent. Disabled people, there's a tremendous ability there to talk about health equity through the lens of disability. Veterans, making sure we're taking care of folks who come back from war. But again, really welcoming everyone under the tent and showing them how they all benefit from health inequity. And it's not to say that you shouldn't and that you can't talk about racial disparities. You absolutely should. But you've got to know your audience and you've got to give them a reason to embrace your vision of health equity. And if you do that, you can be a lot more effective. We also need to watch our language. And that sounds a little bit strong. There's a great publication that I know many of you have read. It's called A New Way to Talk About the Social Determinants of Health by Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And what they did in that publication was go out and poll 4,000 voters, the people who are actually deciding whether or not we're going to spend money on infant mortality, or deciding whether or not we're going to fund health care coverage expansion, or deciding whether or not we're going to fund HIV. Democrat, Republican, black, white, and you know what they found? They found words like disparities, like racism, like inequality, consistently turn people off, shut them down, completely shut them down. And a lot of you all, when you hear that, you go, oh my gosh, the Surgeon General's up here telling us not to talk about these things. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just telling you that the people you're trying to convince are not the people in this room. They're people who, when polled, say, that turns me off and I don't want to hear about it anymore. Because when you talk about, I mentioned this before,